I take great pleasure in inviting Dr. Dhaminda Samrasinghe to the stage to assume his role as session chair. Let us welcome him with a warm round of applause.
Thank you very much. I think we have a very interesting session next. It's integrating innovative technologies and research. Everybody is speaking about next 100 years. I think this is applicable to next 6 months because we are going to enact the Personal Data Protection Act within next 6 months. So we should align with the data protection as medical professionals. We all need to align. So without much ado, I'll invite the first speaker, Professor Bandula Siribandana, Professor of Medical Education at Postgraduate Institute of Medicine, University of Colombo. He has contributed a lot to the field of digital technology and everything related to innovative AI and everything. So over to you, Bandula.
Thank you, Shah, for the introduction, and it's a pleasure to be in this first session. And can I first of all thank the Excellency Centenary Committee for the invitation as well as the opportunity to share some thoughts in relation to technology and its use in medical practice. So I'll start off with a concept that kind of has risen through the ashes and is being debated significantly these days. The concept of technological singularity. What it basically suggests is there is a point in time at which point the machine intelligence will overcome the human intelligence. We might think that it's already here, but we are not. But actually, once it surpasses this point in time, the evolution is exponential to the extent that there may not be much of a control by the humans. And plus, the impact of that exponential evolution of intelligence will impart an irreversible impact on the society that therefore will change the civilization forever. And this is what Stephen Hawking mentioned as the worst event in the history of our civilization. We can be happy that we are not yet there, but it might come. But having said that, this is another concept that has kind of emerged with any technology over the last probably 50, 60 years, which has some intelligence which potentially could, replace human intelligence. But it has never really gained momentum until now. So let's move ahead with this thought in our head. But should SLMC think of tech? That is another question that I would like to start off with so that it will kind of remain in our mind. Well, the answer to this lies in the vision and the mission. Vision is for a health system in which the patients are treated and cared for by competent humane, ethical and safe healthcare professionals. And the mission is to protect, promote, maintain the health and safety of the public by setting, maintaining and raising standards of education and practice of healthcare across the country. If tech is the one that's going to impact many of these aspects in terms of training, practice, in terms of care, yes, SLMC does have a role. With that, I'll get into my topic. In digital health, telemedicine and data privacy, transforming patient care in a connected world. It touches upon three key important areas, but not necessarily all, but I will try to link these three concepts in a way that we will understand, okay, what probably is our role as health medical professionals, but at the same time, what's the role of a governing body such as SLMC. First of all, I'll go into some of these concepts one by one. Digital health. You already probably know that it's an umbrella term that refers to many things. You can see this in this illustration. It refers to things like big data, mHealth, health apps, wearables, anything that kind of make use of ICT or information and communication technologies. You don't see AI here. So where's AI? AI is everywhere. All of the components that you see here and which you don't see here can and will be influenced by AI, and therefore it's already mainstream, it's already there. So as a result, everything technology will be influenced by this emerging trend. Telemedicine is the care of patients or care provision of care when there is a separation by distance between the two parties. So the medical professionals using video communication technologies to care for or communicate with patients can be considered telemedicine, and that imparts its own influence in how we deliver care as well as how we regulate. Data privacy, on the other hand, it refers to the control a person will have in terms of his or her personal data. So we all know that unless we give consent, our personal data should remain with us, and we should be able to share it whenever we need to acquire care from a health professional. That should be the norm, but maybe that's not happening as it should. But why should we care? Because this is where we are at. The healthcare is one of the highest in terms of influence by cybersecurity breaches. Since 2022, it has a rise in 8.2% according to IBM Analytics, with a cost of about 10.11 million overall in the US. So it does highlight an important area which needs to be sensitive to. Now, let's go into examples of each of these elements to understand what its implications in terms of regulation and in terms of what the excellency might do with it. For example, let's take a diabetic patient who's being cared for. This is how we have, in general, cared for a diabetic patient in the past, right? Patients come for a monthly clinic. Blood sugar levels may be manually recorded and entered into the book. And then doctors may not be able to see what they are doing, how they are maintaining, or how they are managing themselves, except for that visit that they do monthly. So mostly our care is reactive rather than being proactive. But now we have the technologies to monitor the blood glucose levels continuously, evolving technologies. Data can be shared in real time, so whenever there's information related to the patient's conditions, it may be communicated to a practitioner. AI may be used in terms of assessing the risk and then making predictions, and then therefore alerting the healthcare professional as well as the patients. And then it may also suggest certain practices or advice for that particular patient. These technologies are already there, so it's not necessarily the future. And the implications in terms of bodies such as SLMC might be very vast. It may be about standardizing the monitoring tools, digital literacy, ensuring how AI tools are used safely, and how effectively care providers can provide care using data-driven models. All these require meticulous attention because it has the potential to deviate from the norm. Let's take an example of telemedicine. The past practice, a snake bite. You need antivenom, but there may not be much expertise in terms of giving it. There may not be toxinology experts. Delays may occur and life may be lost. But now you have the ability of consulting a practitioner who's far away, who will be able to give you that advice and guide the doctors in providing the care in a timely manner. Therefore, we can actually manage the patients in their own setting, saving much needed time. But then the implications of that is the platform separates the carer as well as the patient, which essentially means that we need to now ensure whether that particular provider has the necessary capacity or the skills to deliver care over such a platform, and how to ensure that the data that is being transferred is secure and that nobody else will get hand of that. And also whether these monitoring platforms are also accountable in terms of the care that is being provided. Then when it comes to data privacy, it may be something like patient data being stored in a paper file, which probably accessed by only one person in a hospital setting. Given the physical nature of its storage, it's very difficult to breach that data unless you can find the file for yourself hanging there for about hour and a entire day maybe. But the current practice allows the data to be efficiently stored, accessed, used for the care, but at the same time for data breaches. Data may be lost in millions and it might cost millions. So which again then provides avenues for the SLMC or any governing body to look at standards of such access. How do you store such data? What's the governance modules in terms of getting consent and sharing of data? And how do you collaborate with ICT regulators? All these kind of emerge with such technologies. Let's jump into a different dynamic that is emerging. These are some of the pharma companies that you know of. In recent times, these pharma companies have gained into collaborations with AI companies, which essentially means that they are looking at technology as another category, not necessarily as a tool. And which again essentially means that huge investments are made. This is what you see in PubMed when you search for AI-related research, or not necessarily technology, but AI-specific research, an exponential increase in research in recent times, going into thousands. And these are not clinical trials, mind you, but if you look at the clinical trials, similar trends. If you look at the FDA approvals in terms of AI and ML devices, this is what you see, an exponential rise again in terms of devices. This indicates the investments going into it, not necessarily researchers being interested, but investments going into it. And as a result, now you see there are technologies emerging in different health segments, which essentially captures intelligence, largely in radiology-related areas. Those radiologists who are in the audience need not to worry though, yet. Cardiovascular, neurology, and all sorts of areas are in the list. And I was wondering, being a medical education, why medical education is not there. Dr. Dujip and all might also be there. There are two reasons for that. Either nobody's interested or we are already obsolete. So this is how things are changing. This is how technology is being introduced. And then we ask the question, can AI be inaccurate? Yes, it can, because the ability of an AI to be accurate or be effective will depend on how it was trained. And if it is not trained in a proper manner, there are so many ways in which that the model might work inaccurately. And that can happen. For example, an AI model that is trained to detect skin conditions in a Western country where on white-skinned people might then work differently when it is used in a country such as ours. So it requires our researchers, our technologists, our regulators to move in. Otherwise, the technologies we use must not really match our context, nor our patients. Then what is the world thinking in terms of technology? There is multiple attempts at regulating. This is important for us to know. There is an effort which I'm happy to say that a lot of inputs coming from Sri Lanka for a global reference framework on health data governance. A draft has already been done, which is being shared, and we are going for global consultative process in the coming months. And this will basically allow countries to adopt high-level principles in their own context. Then the WHO framework of principles in ethical application of AI, these are things that we can adopt, we can actually use in regulating our own self. What is there in Sri Lanka? Well, we have the National E-Health Policy, we have a Data Governance and Protection, Data Protection Act, we have standards and interoperability introduced by the Ministry of Health, and we have also cross-sector standards and oversight such as the Online Safety Act and so on. But at the same time, we also have a cohort of form of health informaticians in the Ministry of Health itself. Probably nowhere in the world we have such a cohort existing in a single institute in a country. Basically, that essentially means that we can actually take proactive steps rather than being reactive. Now, what does it mean in terms of SLMC? Well, there are several things out of which I have just listed a few here. Not to say that the SLMC has not taken steps towards this. Already there are steps taken, but some things that need that to be for us to consider collectively. Integration and investments. Initiatives to upskill medical professionals is a must, because if you are using a telemedicine platform, it's important for the professionals to know how to provide care using such a platform, because it's different to interacting with a patient just next to you. So that skill needs to be imparted. At the same time, how you handle consent, how you handle data, how you secure data, everything needs to be known by a medical professional. Then equity and governance. The SLMC and the governing bodies should advocate for data privacy, because technology evolves rapidly, and if you stay back and look at it, until it evolves, things may have moved beyond it. So it requires a patient-centered digital health that will help everyone to benefit from it, rather than only one segment. Then the vision for the next 100 years or so should also be driven by what we see as a rapid evolution in technology. It's innovation, equity, and data-driven, and that's something that needs to be part of how we consider governance. Well, I asked the ChatGPT to show me how we care for a patient at present moment. Well, close enough. Then I asked to show, okay, what can happen in 10 years' time. This was what it showed me. Use of maybe telemedicine platforms and so on. Then I asked, okay, what can happen if it is what, as of Hawkins mentioned, what can happen? This is what will happen in SLMC bicentennial celebrations. The interesting thing is the guy who got replaced. In a way, in a cynical way, it also kind of telling that the people who were in rural areas will remain the same. Whatever happens after a century of care. But then this basically kind of highlights what can happen in a way for us to think. The ball is now in our court, so it's time for us to make the next move, and this probably is the right step towards that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Bandula, for that very informative lecture. We